Okay, all right. Hello, everybody. This is Dan King from Fistbump Media, and just want to welcome you today as we continue our webinar series. Today's session is one of our client services webinars, where we kind of dig into different features and functions and website management basics and things like that. That particularly clients on our website hosting platforms, our managed WordPress platforms, we'll get to use or need and stuff anytime really throughout their hosting experience with us. Today we're digging into really a pretty simple topic, but a very important one, and it's dealing with website backups. So today, it's the complete backups guide. Protect your valuable files, for your website. And before we jump in, this is really going to be a quick one. Because I want to show you a couple of things quick. I'm going to do a little bit of screen sharing, and we're going to look at some different options we have and some recommendations that I make for how to manage your backups and stuff for your website. I'm going to show you what we do on our end from the hosting side, but also another kind of a little extra step that you can do on your end to really kind of make sure you're good, secure, and have everything you need stuff at any given time. But this is a very quick one, and but before I do, before I jump into showing you stuff, really I want to kind of explain why this is so important. We have had clients every once in a while, and this is not just an us thing, but this is something that's pretty consistent around the web and everything too. We had a client once recently who lost their entire website with another website host. Because the backup wasn't done completely and stuff too. Then they come back to us and wanted to see if we had a backup file. Fortunately, in this one case, we did. There are other times where we didn't stuff for whatever reason, but basically, if anything happens to your website, if it gets attacked from a malicious hacker phishing kind of perspective. And you just need to roll it back, and because maybe there were a bunch of malicious files installed and we want to clean it up and just wipe it out and restore it to what it was a few days ago or something like that, and then change passwords or whatever. There's a lot of reasons we want to have good backups, okay? And there are really two types of backups that we really try to help manage and suggest are a good route to go. One is some on-server backups. Right, so the website, as a client with us, your website lives on our servers, and we want to maintain some backups there on those servers and stuff as well too. So, and we do that, and I'm going to show you that here, what that looks like in just a moment. But it's also a good idea too, and definitely something we recommend to keep a separate set of backups off the server, basically somewhere else, and you can keep them locally on your own computer. You can keep them, on a Dropbox or a Google Drive or something like that. And there's some recommendations I make with that too, and I'm going to show you here in a minute. But when you have a separate set of backups too, that is not on the same web server, that even helps us even make sure that in a worst case scenario, if something happened to the entire server and the backups even that we have on server were compromised for whatever reason, that's not something I anticipate, but this is why we do it, right? Backups are really our insurance policy to make sure that we don't lose, in many cases, years worth of work that we put together on somebody's website. So it's good just in case something were to happen with the server side backups as well too, to have some off-site, off the server, remote storage somewhere is always a good idea too, because the chances of both failing and not having anything is really pretty slim. I mean, it's almost impossible that something like that would happen. So anyway, we definitely recommend having both, and I'm going to show you a little bit about what we do and how we do it here and stuff too. So So the first thing is, if you go to fistbumpmedia.com and log into your client account, your dashboard with us, you'll see your dashboard like this. This should be familiar space to you and stuff too. But I'm just going to scroll down really quick under my active products and services, and see I have my basic hosting for my personal blog here. And I'm going to click on that. Log me out. One moment while I get that. Okay. All right. And I'm back in here. I close those. Okay. So from my home screen, for my main dashboard, like I said, I just go to the hosting product for my personal blog. And then right on that screen, one of the things that you're going to see here too is really there's a backup section in the cPanel. So you can click over to log into cPanel too as well. But this is an important function. So it's something that we have in the quick shortcuts as well too. So from quick shortcuts, you'll see a backup icon. You just click on that backup icon, and it'll bring you to the screen from the cPanel that has the backups listed here stuff, right? So what you can do, you'll see a few different options. One is we have an account backup, right? And this is the full account, right? So if you have your email addresses hosted through us, your website, everything, all the different files and everything stuff, maybe even multiple websites on your hosting account stuff, with some add-on sites. This is going to be everything, right? So the account backups will look at all of that stuff too. And what you'll see when you drop that down, you typically see two options in there. We have a daily backup that runs every day, and then we have a weekly backup too that just runs once a week, so that you're not relying just on the daily backup. And that's really kind of a just in case. Hey, I got on. Noticed something today, but it was an issue yesterday too, and the daily backup might be the bad copy, right? So you could still go back a little bit and restore to something, within the last several days and stuff. So we keep the daily backup in the weekly backup, so that you can download the entire account and restore that if you need to. From here, you can also see partial backups, and there's different sections of things that you can back up. One is this home directory, right? And if I just click on that, what it's going to do is it's going to download a copy of the files for the website, really the entire home directory. So this is all the WordPress files, the email files, the images that I load up into my blog post. All that stuff that's going to be there just in the home directory. So that's just the files that make up the website. Without getting too technical, there's really two pieces that make your website work. One is the files themselves. The other one is the database. And what you'll see here too is that you can also grab just a download of the database backup that we have on file there and stuff too. So same thing, if I were to just click on that, it's going to download that most recent copy of that database that I have that makes up, and that's where all the blog post content and things like that stuff, all that information lives in the database. So both are really important because the text on the website and stuff, that is not a file, that's a database entry. So you'll have your files, your database entry, and then really everything in the account backup is going to be all of that together. Okay, so anyway, you'll be able to do partial backups and download that stuff. That's the really important stuff. You'll see some email forwarders and filters and things like that you can download as well too. While I'm here, basically, if you're at a point where we need to restore something like that, let's say for example we download a backup we're troubleshooting some stuff and working on some things, doing some redesign or whatever too, and then everything crashes, and then we just want to restore it, right? So from here, you can take a home directory backup file that you have downloaded, right? And then you can restore that just by choosing that zip file and then uploading it, and that'll run the restore process on that. Same thing with the database. You can restore a database just by selecting the file that you downloaded, choosing that file, and then uploading, and that'll get your restore running back in place. If you're on our basic hosting plans or better and stuff too, this is also typically stuff that we will help you with. So don't feel like you necessarily need to be on your own for that or anything, but we definitely want to try to make sure you know where that's at and can do that if you need to. So again, from the client area, just go to backups. You'll be able to either download full account backups, the home directory, or the SQL database, and restore all those things from there as well too. Okay. The other part of backups that I wanted to show you is something that we run from within the site, and this is where we can run a few different types of backups here, but really it's just kind of capturing your website content, and giving you the opportunity. You can either store it on the server, or again choose remote storage. And this is the place where we want to try to run remote storage, because as you see, we've got backup copies of all of your content, the database and everything on the server already. Okay, so typically a hosting account too is going to be limited in the amount of space that you're able to get. You can always buy more space and stuff, but the space that you get a certain amount of space that will contain all your website files and your database and all that stuff too, and even the backups and everything too. We don't charge extra for that. That's just kind of included in space that we run and provide. And what happens though, and I've seen people do this, is they use a tool. There are a lot of plugins that do this. One of my favorites is Updraft Plus to run backups. We run Updraft Plus backups on the website, and then they store it locally on the server in their hosting space. So what you're doing when you do that, you're actually saving another copy of your website on your hosting space. So if they don't set this up a certain way, all of a sudden you've got 20 copies of your hosting space and you're running out of space. It just gets messy that way and stuff too. And really, there's no need to keep it on the server. That's really no benefit, since we already keep full copies of everything on the server anyway. So what we do though, the Updraft Plus is, like I said, one of my favorites, but a lot of them work very similar to this too. And when I install the plugin and go to settings, Updraft Plus backups, I get my little dashboard here for it, and I'll go to settings. And then when I go to settings, it's going to show you a lot of different places where you can store. Some of the most popular places I know that clients we work with do is use like a Dropbox or Google Drive. I'm going to show you Google Drive real quick too, and kind of show how easy this is to connect it. When I select Google Drive, it's giving me some options for what I want to back up and do all that stuff too. But I can also say, back up the files, back up the database and stuff like that too, right? So the database, here's the thing, the database is going to be some of that most important content. So what I see a lot of people do sometimes is maybe do a database backup daily and then keep the most recent 3 copies, for example, okay? And then you can maybe back up all the files for the website once a week, and maybe keep the 2 most recent copies, because those are a little bit easier to recover and stuff too. But if you're blogging on a regular basis, if you're blogging daily and stuff, you may want to try to run a daily database backup yourself and keep it that way. But if you're blogging once a week or something like that too, you can probably even back off on that schedule as well too. It really depends on what you're most comfortable with. And if you think about it, worst case scenario, if something happened and I had to restore back to an old point, what would I lose and how much would I lose? If I'm writing 5 new blog posts every day on my site, then 2 or 3 days is going to be a substantial amount of content that I lose. But if I'm writing once or twice a week and I had to go back to a weekly backup, that was a few days old or something like that, then that would probably be okay. So anyway, set your settings for how much you want to back up the files and how frequently you want to back up the database and how many copies of each you would like to retain. And what it'll do is it'll keep the three most recent copies. Once it gets up to 3 of them there, and the 4th one is then backed up and stored there, it'll drop off the oldest of those 3. So you always have the 3 most recent copies. Okay. So anyway, just look at how this connects. I select Google Drive. All those settings are pretty default. And I say save. And it's going to tell me, you've selected a remote storage requires authorization. Okay. So it doesn't know that where my Google Drive is just because I click Google Drive. So I'm going to now link to my Google Drive. And it's going to ask for an authorization. Which Google account do I want to use? And then it's going to ask me to go ahead and authorize and allow Updraft Plus to send files to my Google Drive and to manage those files too, because you're going to have to delete some on a regular basis too. This happened earlier when I was streaming as well too. Let me try this again. Okay, and update setup is complete, right? So I complete setup, and it's going to take me back now to my website where I have my Updraft settings set up. Now, what that'll do now is if I go back to settings, is the way I have it set right now, the files is going to weekly back up. And it's going to keep the last 2, and the database is going to daily back up and keep the last 3, and it's going to send those files to my Google Drive, which I have connected, and I'm going to have a Google Drive folder there called Updraft Plus, and it's going to store all the files. So pretty easy peasy and stuff too. So you see too that it's found a couple of existing backups here. When I look at the backup restore, it's got a database. And then the plugins, themes, uploads, and others are all files specific to the content on your website. Now, it's important to note too that these are not the WordPress files. These are just the files, the plugins, the themes, the images, PDFs, whatever uploads you have on your website, because the plugin relies on the fact that if I got wiped out, for example, and see it's running that back up now. If I got wiped out, for example, and had to restore, what I would do is I would go ahead and set up just an empty, brand new installation of WordPress. I would install the plugin, and then I would upload those files so that I can see it just back to my database and send it to my Google Drive. So anyway, once I'm looking at the remote storage here too, if for whatever reason I needed to restore back to that point, I'm not going to walk through it all right now too, but it's a pretty simple click where I just say click on the restore, and it's going to say, yep, do you want to go ahead and restore that database or whatever it is that you're looking at, so or the whole set of files. And that's that. So that's really just about all you need to know about backups and stuff. Again, our recommendation is just to be aware that we do have a couple of sets of full account backups and stuff on the server already. If you would like to keep additional backups as well too, that you have quick, easy access to as well, and can restore quickly, we definitely recommend the Updraft Plus plugin. And set it to a remote storage to get it off the server and keep it somewhere else. And then those files are portable. You can take them anywhere and restore it in any other WordPress installation anytime. So that's typically what I recommend, and keep a few different backlogs of maybe 3 or 4 or something like that, of especially your database, so that way you have a couple good restore points if you need to go back and maybe one of the restore points is a corrupt one. So that's that. And with that, if you have any questions with our client services and stuff, don't hesitate to open a ticket with us. And as always, you should should see in your website the Contact Fistbump Media support widget, and you can use that at any time to send us a ticket, and we will respond to that as quickly as we can. So with that, I just want to say thanks. Give me a big fist bump. Boom. And have an awesome day.